at that we've got a couple new API endpoints and features. So if you haven't seen them yet, feel free to play with them. We've added a new endpoint that lets you add a document to a case. So if you're generating a document outside of Legal Server, right? I'll have an example later today of a docassemble version, right? You can then use this to add that to a case. This also works with online intakes, right? So if you've done an online intake, you then want to pass the document to that online intake, right? You can use that as well. The other endpoints, right? We've got two recently that expanded the online intake trigger, right? If you're using that to start an online intake for someone else, this lets you sort of add some of that. Lets you both define which online intake you're using and then also add in a whole bunch of stuff to the adverse parties. There'll probably be a new, another ticket, I'm hoping this week, that'll do the same thing for the for family members as well in the online intake trigger and the online intake import. So just feel free. I know Ron calls these out sometimes in the release notes, but we also have these change logs here that you can always see. So with that, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about two different integrations that I built using our API tools from within Legal Server. So the first of this was a question about using Legal Server to tie into HelloSign, right? HelloSign is a way where you can go back and forth and get electronic signatures, right? DocuSign, HelloSign. There's a number of others that are out there. So Sign Request, I think, is one. A lot of the API endpoints are fairly similar for these. So you can take a look, and I've got the documentation for this example is on our integrations page on the help site. So you're always able to sort of poke at it there. And then what we're going to do here is this is specifically using this pro bono referral authorization document that I got from HVL. So thank you, HVL. Right, I've added two signers to this document, right? We've got a client who signs it and an attorney who signs it. And then here you can sort of see where everything goes, right? We've got the name of the client at the top. We've got an option here for like, what's the problem that the attorney is representing them for? What form is this being represented in? Right, this was just a sort of a sample document. So right, ideally, we'd probably take out these underlines here so that we're not sort of overwriting them. You don't have to worry about aligning the multiple rows of text exactly with those. And then at the bottom, you can see we've got our two signatures, right? We can see that we've got, here's the client's signature, here's the attorney's signature. We've got that information. And the way that this is set up is that we've got two form process, right? The first form, we fill out those custom fields about the forum and the problem. And then we also have to put in here the client's email address. So I'm going to go ahead and say the forum is Harris County, and that the problem is needing an expungement. And then we'll put in the client's email address. I'm just going to use my own. Right, and so I put in that email address, and now we're going to make an API call. Right, I've got an instruction on here saying that this API call is going to trigger an email, and this happens even on a demo site, right? Because the email is not being sent by Legal Server, the email is instead being sent by HelloSign, right? And so what I've done is I used, right, there's a specific API endpoint that ties in with how to use a template. And so that's what's being used here in this generic outgoing API block. So you can see here that we've got our, we're able to define specifically the message, right? This is the email that's getting sent out. I'm using test mode 1, which says that this is a test template, right? Different plans with HelloSign and others cost different amounts of money, but most of them let you test and get non-binding signatures for free. But if you actually want a binding signature, you can't be using the test mode. You have to be using a paid account, and we're not doing that here. I put in here what the redirect URL is, right? Where do you go after you sign it? Right. I have to identify the template, which I did. Right. Here's the subject for that message email, and then I've got in here identified who's the attorney and who's the client. Right. You can see signer's attorney email address, signer's attorney's name. I'm able to pull the client's name and the attorney's name. In this case, I'm using the pro bono user, but I could also have said the pro bono full name. I could have also said the caseworker name, right? There isn't a parameter for the caseworker's email. Well, actually, there is one for the primary advocate email, so I could also be using that. But it's up to you to sort of identify some of those. And then I've got my 2 custom fields, right? Adding in the forum and the problem, and I've identified those as well. And then the last thing is I've also added a CC line for the case email, so that the case gets a copy of the signed document when everything's said and done, right? So that's how this is all set up. I've got an authentication header at the bottom that I'm not going to show on a recorded video, but then this is the API call that gets made, right? And so when I click continue, right, I can come over here to case nodes and see, look, I've got here's the outgoing API response. Right, and I think I reload, right, nothing's happening here. But I should be getting an email.
Michael, that's a response from HelloSign. That's what HelloSign's API sent back to.
Yeah, and I said save the response as a note.
Yep.
So I got because there's an order to the signatures, right? So here, let me pop this out. Right, so here's my email. Here's the HelloSign message that I just got, right? Got an email about the test PBRA. Here, I've got that sample message text that got set up in the template. You can see that the subject of the email was there, and I can click review this, sign it, and it's going to load for me. It tells me it's mock signature because I've got that test example, but you can see that I've got the client's first name, Friday. I've got my needing expungement in Harris County, and you can see why I'd get rid of those lines if I were doing this for a real thing. But then I can click here and go ahead and sign it. I've completed all the fields. Continue. I agree. Right. If I come back to the case and I refresh it, look, I got a message, an email from this going like, yes, just letting you know that the document's been sent, right? And then I think I should get another message saying that someone has opened it. Right, I'm going to go ahead and sign it on the second account as well. And I've now finalized that document. So if we give HelloSign a minute or two to handle it, right? We got the message going, your document has been viewed, right? We'll let you know as soon as they sign it. And then I have to refresh again. And here it is. You've been copied on the document. Here it is, right? I can see that document and I can see both signatures for it. So that sort of went from beginning to end to pass that example over. And that's just using the template from within HelloSign. So right, I had some variables. I was able to pass that using the generic outgoing API over to HelloSign, and HelloSign took care of the rest, including copying it back to the case when everything was said and done, right? And my email account also got a signed copy of that document as well. So that's one sort of fun integration. Any questions about how that works?
Michael, the HelloSign sending the document back, would you go a little slower on how that's triggered the document actually arriving back in legal server?
Yeah, so I said, hey, include the CC line, right? And a CC line in HelloSign's template API is someone who gets a copy of that, right? So that they get a copy of this document, but they're not someone who needs to sign that document, right? And that's why we've got, right, the signers parameter, and then you've got the CCS parameter, right? The signers have to sign it, but the CCs just get copies of it. And so since I was able to put in here the case email, right, it was just able to drop back to the case when everything was said and done.
Beautiful.
Yep. Right, and this just requires one HelloSign account, right? Because the HelloSign account is going to get used by the organization level who creates the template. You are going to have to pay for templates and stuff like that, and access to those templates. And I have no idea what that runs. Side note, if you are interested in HelloSign, Legal Server is a reseller of HelloSign. So you can reach out to us or to Aaron specifically about that. But right, the back and forth with this API, like I've looked at the DocuSign APIs, I've looked at the sign request APIs. They're all pretty similar if you're using a template. And so you can sort of play with some of this as well. Right. I mean, I think, I know Kristen just posted about preferring this over external forms, right? One nice thing here is that you can have 2 or 3 people sign it. And having that one document make that whole loop could be useful. The other aspect to it is that once you've got it all signed, you've got that all on a PDF. And sometimes the signature attestations in a legal server don't print to a PDF so well. So just a nice, fun sort of exercise.
Do you have, between the different options like HelloSign, DocuSign, and all these ones you mentioned, what is your take on the best one, or like the best ones for certain types of needs?
I don't know that I have, like when I investigated this, it was 3 years ago now. So I haven't done a lot of diving into it recently. One of the things that I would certainly recommend that you do is take a look at how many signatures you're allowed to do in a month and how many signatures you are entitled to do. A lot of them said that they were unlimited, but then said that if you went over like their regular amount in a month, that they would have issues with you, right? And looking at like customer usage being like 50, and so if you went over 50, you would have to pay more, even though it said that you had access to unlimited signatures. And I found that that was very misleading. And so that was one thing to sort of take a look at. Other than that, I mean, a lot of the API endpoints are pretty similar. Becomes a question of if you need like a business authorization agreement for HIPAA compliance or something else like that. I don't know if you've got any other concerns, right? So that's always just something to see what the different service providers can do for you.
And one last question. Is there a way to alert the primary or the sender or something like that when it is completed? Does it just come in as a case note, or have you found a good process for alerting the staff member that it's done?
Well, so you could add another CC line, right? And one of the parameters, primary. Yeah, one of the parameters that we've got here is primary advocate email.
Awesome.
So, and then that can just get tied into that. And you can see that we had like the pro bono email and the pro bono full name, and I actually cannot tell you what would happen if you had multiple pro bono users on the case. But I can at least tell you that if you've just got one pro bono user on the case, you can use those.
And what can we tell people, if anything, about pricing? I don't actually know off the top of my head.
I don't either.
Talk to Aaron. Okay, got
Talk
it.
to Aaron.
Got
Yeah.
it. Great.
Yeah. All right. So the second example that I've got for you is using docassemble to generate a document, right? And if you're already using the example that I've got here is a pure docassemble version. So that to my knowledge, this wouldn't work with Afterpattern. It wouldn't work with Documate. It might work with Documate if you got access to the docassemble APIs, but I don't think that they're offering those right now. But what this is using is it's using two APIs on the docassemble side of things. Right. So the first is to start an interview in docassemble, and you have to make a specific GET request that starts that interview session. Right. And then the second thing that you're going to do is you're going to set variables in that interview. Right. And so this is a situation where you're going to make two API calls back to back. Right. The first gets the session. The second posts information to that specific session. And so this is a place where we're able to leverage the the guided navigation API. And so this is our client here is Second Friday. Right? I was picking a new client to make sure that everything was clean. If we go to case notes, we just have our intake case note. And then under actions, I'm going to my docassemble guided nav testing. Right? Docassemble is open source. It's available. Right? You need to have a public-facing docassemble server to make this happen. But you can see here, I've got two custom fields. One is the docassemble secret, and one is the docassemble session. And on the back end, right, this is my guided nav segment. On the back end, this looks like this. Right, I've got two API calls that are happening. The first API call is just showing me the secret and the session. But then the API call that's happening is using that API session new to just create a new session, right? And it's using my my docassemble API key, which I'm going to reset after this call before we post this video. And then it's also saying which interview do you want to use. And I've identified this test interview, and it's going to do that. And then I'm using one of the new features with our guided nav dialogues to use JQ filters. And JQ filters are a way that you can parse JSON files to then say, hey, make this more useful to me. Right? So you can use that filter to then parse a specific value into a field in Legal Server. So in this case, I'm saving the value in this JSON response that's secret into the field that says docassemble secret, right? And I'm doing the same thing with the docassemble session field. And so one of the things that when I click next, right, it's running. And now you can see that the secret and the session have been created, right? The session is the ID value of that session. And then the secret is the key that I need because all of these sessions are encrypted. Now, if I jump back on the same case right now to my case notes, right, that second API has already launched, and so we'll ignore that for now. But here you can see this is the API response that I got from that first call. So if I actually go, there's a site that you can use that's called JQ Play, right, where you can plug in the JSON filter, the JSON text, and then you can test, right, if I want secret, what does that look like? And it's looking, and it gives you the ability to see what that information is that you're parsing out there, right? So if I put in secret, right, that's pulling it. I think I could also do like length or something. Right? There's all sorts of ways that you can sort of play with some of these variables. And you can see here, right, here's length. So I don't remember exactly how to get this working, but you can see how some of these will work and and play with some of them as you go through that, right? Oh, so here, if I've got, here's my JSON value, right? I can put in here dot secret, and then I can say length, and then that's going to give me, it's a 16-digit secret, right? And so you can use JQ to really play with the results that you're getting in terms of what you've got, right? That it doesn't just have to be copying the variable, but you can also transform it. You can also evaluate it in different ways, right? You can even use conditionals, if then else statements to say like, hey, if the response is 5 digits, do this. If the response is 10 digits, do that. And then to be able to then use this to set variables in legal server, right? So what happened here is that after it got the secret in the session, it went back and did a second API call for us on that second segment, right? And you can see that this API call is happening when that segment is shown, but it is now posting variables, and it's actually doing it in an interesting way, right? So we've got our key, we've got our interview, which we had before. Then we have our session and our secret that are coming from those variables. And then it's passing a data structure of variables, right? We're passing the client name, the first name, last name, and then the case email address. And what's happening on DocAssemble side of things is that I've got an interview. And this is a very simple interview in DocAssemble that has 3 lines, right? Get the client's name, the recipient's name, send an email, and then show a final screen. Well, so what's happening is we start off the interview. DocAssemble says, all right, I need the client's name. Well, that second API call passes the variables for the client's name, right? It defines name first and name last. And then DocAssemble says, all right, well, now I need the recipient's email address. Well, that's coming from this case email, that recipient.email. So now it has everything it needs. So it's able to set the recipient's name, it's able to send the email, and then it basically finishes its interview. And so what happened is that you can see here, we now have the created document, which is called simple sample, which if we look is just 3 simple fields where it's filling in today's date, first and last names, right? This is the template that we're working with. And it generated that, put in second Friday and today's date. So this is where you're using DocAssemble as that document generation platform, but again, you're not requiring your staff to go into DocAssemble to fill out anything. You're able to pass those variables along from within Legal Server.
And we can pass along any custom fields too?
Any custom fields that are on the matter. Right, so and that's just right, adding additional fields here that you see. And you can see that I can pass along that hello sign form field if I wanted to, right? This is a demo site that doesn't have a lot of stuff. So there's not too many things here, but you can see that there is a fair amount of data that you can pass along. And one of the other things that you could do, if you're more comfortable with building something in DocAssemble, you could also use the reports API to pull additional information in beyond just what's available in this outbound API, right? And you can even tie in that new document post API endpoint so that you're posting the document back to the case as opposed to emailing the document back to the case. You wanted to do that as well, right?
Will you say that again, that last part, Michael?
Yeah, so the way that this document got back to the case is DocAssemble sent an email with this document, right? One of the options could be that you use that new posting document API endpoint, and you can write something in DocAssemble that would use that API endpoint to send the completed document back to the case, right? So you, on this case, you wouldn't see it in case notes because it's not coming in through an email, but you would see it in documents, and you would see that document being uploaded here. Right?
Got it.
So some interesting ways to utilize some other platforms to do some of that work. And the nice thing is, right, this is a really simple DocAssemble interview that's just grabbing first, last name, and today's date. But you could have in here all sorts of different calculations. You can have it doing whatever you might want it doing in DocAssemble, right? Like if you want it doing logic, if you want it doing if statements, if you want it doing parsing out a name into different fields, right? And you can use both PDF templates, and you can also use docx templates. So you've got a lot of potential for building something in DocAssemble and then passing it back to Legal Server.
So if somebody wants to use this particular example, will you say just a little bit about what somebody would need to do to spin up their own DocAssemble or to use DocAssemble?
Yeah, so this would require a DocAssemble server, right, which you can typically spin up, right? I've always recommended using AWS or Azure for the hosting of that server. There's options that are about $20 a piece monthly for hosting it, and you can always use your nonprofit credits to through TechSoup or Microsoft to offset those costs. But then you can, right, there's a bunch of documentation on DocAssemble's website about how to spin that up, right, using Docker and launching that. And I think there may be another, I think there's a third company that's rolling out there in terms of hosting DocAssemble sites for you as well, in addition to Documate or Afterpattern. But that's also just recently gotten launched.
Got it. So Documate is still DocAssemble based, right? And
right.
So they would host your own, and it's got I'd say if this is making your eyes spin, thinking about, spinning up your own server, SSL certificates, that kind of thing, definitely take a look at Documate as. And now we haven't this that explicit integration though is on the way. Where are we with that? I mean, could someone, if they use the Documate version of this out of the box, use our general outgoing API to do this?
So not right now, because Documate doesn't have incoming APIs turned on yet. We're talking with them about it, but that hasn't happened yet. And then Documate does have a Zapier integration that they're working on. And the nice thing is that we're also exploring that as well in terms of at least using that as a receiving platform. So you could, for example, use Documate for an online intake, and then pass that information along to a Zapier endpoint that's then using the online intake import API within Legal Server to pass that intake to your Legal Server site.
Basically using Zapier as the in-between, or sort of like a piece of middleware.
Yep, exactly. So, and that's still in draft phases, right? We've got an example of using Zapier with some of our APIs, and I think there's a little bit of work that we need to do to clean up some of that and get the various permissions published and stuff like that. So if you're interested in that, feel free to reach out to me. We can take a look and see what that's going to look like.
I'm gonna post. Thank you, Michael. And I'm gonna post in help the. So we named it the generic outgoing API block, but I'm gonna say again, it's way undernamed because generic sounds like, off-brand. That thing has become unbelievably flexible. So maybe general outgoing API. The whole idea is that you don't have to code anything in order to. It's gotten so much more flexible even since we built it, that you can store responses and store things into variables inside of legal server. It's pretty great, worth taking a peek at. And then Michelle, I think you were at the first time we unveiled it and trained on it. I think you were at that conference. So boy, that was a while ago now. And then the other piece here with the API docs, I just wanted to post that, Michael, in chat.
Yep. Well, and then there's also the guided Nav Api calls, right, which is a separate block, and so that's a separate help article. So I just posted that one, and we do have a integrations page, which has some of this detail in terms of how to set this up for HelloSign or how to set this up for DocAssemble, laid out with some examples so you can see what that looks like. Questions from people?
I'd love to keep hearing just in ideas for future ones, like keep hearing ideas from people about how they're using, like what problems they're solving with this really powerful tool. Just throwing that out there.
Using APIs, you mean, or?
Yes, the generic / all-powerful outgoing API block.
Yeah. Do folks have ideas of things they'd like to integrate with this way by sending information from legal server to an outside tool?
I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording while we're chatting.
Right. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.